Story 1: The Silence Upstairs. I always liked being home alone. There's a certain calm in it, a kind of quiet I never got during the day, when the world was loud and demanding. When my parents left town for a weekend trip to see my aunt in Ohio, I practically begged to stay behind. I was 18, a legal adult. Senior year had just ended and college acceptance letters were already pinned to the fridge. It felt like a reward, this independence. Friday evening came with a summer breeze and the smell of grilled cheese. I made a stack of sandwiches, queued up my horror movie marathon, and sprawled out on the living room couch. Our house sat at the edge of a cul-de-sac, safe, familiar. Nothing dramatic ever happened here. The first two films went down easy, a gory slasher and a haunted doll thing. Halfway into the third movie, I noticed the wind had died down. The trees stopped rustling. The kind of stillness that doesn't feel peaceful, just off. I muted the TV. That's when I heard it. A creak from upstairs. Slow, drawn out. The kind of sound that makes your heart stop before your brain can tell you it was probably just the house settling. Except it came again. Then again. Heavier this time. I sat up, gripping the blanket. I knew every sound this house made, the pipes, the floorboards, the thumps of squirrels on the roof. This wasn't any of those. These footsteps sounded deliberate. Slow. Like someone walking carefully. "Mom?" I called out, instinctively, even though I knew she was hours away. "Dad?" No answer. I stood. The remote slipped out of my hand and clattered to the floor, making me flinch. I forced a laugh. Maybe I left a window open upstairs. Maybe the breeze was knocking something around. But the air didn't move. I crossed the living room, climbed the stairs quietly. My heart pounded like it wanted out of my chest. I reached the landing and looked down the hallway. All the doors were open, just like I left them. But the bathroom light was on. I hadn't turned that on. I walked toward it slowly. "Hello?" My voice was barely above a whisper. The light flicked off. I stopped. Froze in place. And then I heard it, something dragging across the carpet. Something slow and deliberate, moving toward my parents' bedroom at the end of the hall. I don't know what came over me. Maybe stubbornness. Maybe adrenaline. I crept down the hallway, each step louder than the last in that suffocating silence. I pushed the bedroom door open. Empty. Just as I started to relax, I heard the closet door creak. My spine stiffened. I stared at it. "Okay," I muttered to myself, voice shaking. "Okay. This is fine." I took one shaky step forward and grabbed a baseball bat leaning in the corner by the dresser. My dad's old Louisville slugger. I held it tight and nudged the closet door open with the end. Inside, hanging clothes. Shoes. A box of winter coats. But no one there. I stared for a long time. Then, click. The bathroom light turned back on. Behind me. I spun around. There, in the mirror, was a figure. Tall. Thin. Standing perfectly still behind me in the reflection. But when I turned, no one was there. My scream caught in my throat. I backed away, bat raised, breathing in short, panicked gasps. I didn't blink. Didn't move. Just stared at the mirror. The figure was gone. The silence returned. I ran. Barreled down the stairs, out the front door, and didn't stop until I hit the driveway. I stood there barefoot in the grass, heart pounding against my ribs, staring at the dark windows of my house. Nothing moved. Nothing stirred. After 10 minutes, I told myself I imagined it. That it was stress. Lack of sleep. My horror movie marathon bleeding into real life. I went back inside. That was my first mistake. I locked the front door behind me, this time sliding the deadbolt with shaking fingers. My feet patted across the hardwood floor as I made my way back to the living room, the bat still clutched in one hand. I didn't turn the TV back on. The noise felt inappropriate. Too loud. Like it would drown out something I needed to hear. Instead, I sat curled up on the couch, knees to my chest, bat in my lap, eyes locked on the stairwell like it might come alive. Every shadow seemed thicker. The air heavier. Even the hum of the refrigerator sounded more menacing now. I must have sat like that for over an hour, the sky outside growing darker by the minute. Then the upstairs toilet flushed. I jolted upright, the bat slipping to the floor with a loud clunk. No footsteps. No creaking. Just the sound of water running, then silence. There was no one in this house but me. I told myself I had to check. That I couldn't sleep with that sound echoing in my mind. So I stood, picked up the bat, and made my way back up the stairs. This time, each step felt like an eternity. The bathroom door was closed now. I was sure, I had left it open. My hand hovered over the knob. Just open it, I whispered to myself. Just open it and get it over with. I twisted the handle slowly and pushed the door open. Steam poured out into the hallway. I blinked. The mirror was fogged over. The shower curtain was drawn shut. There was moisture on the tiles. Footprints, bare feet, leading from the shower to the center of the room and back again. I hadn't run the shower. I reached out and slowly peeled the curtain back. Nothing. No one. The tub was bone dry. I turned toward the mirror, squinting through the fog. There was something written in the condensation, just above the sink. 4 words, smeared by a fingertip. You shouldn't be here. I stumbled back, knocking over the trash bin. My foot slipped on the damp tile, and I caught myself on the edge of the sink. My stomach turned to ice. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't care anymore. I ran to my bedroom, slammed the door, and shoved my dresser in front of it. I locked the windows, turned on every light, and curled up under my blanket like it could protect me. The house was quiet again. Until about 3 a.m. That's when I heard the whispering. Not words exactly. Just sound. Breath and hissing. As if someone was speaking just outside the door, too soft to understand. I sat up, eyes wide. Then the scratching started. Light, but deliberate. Like fingernails on wood. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Coming from just beneath my bed. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stared into the darkness. Then a voice, soft and childlike, drifted up from below. Are you hiding too? I froze. The voice didn't belong to anyone I knew. It wasn't a child's voice exactly. More like something pretending to be one. Too smooth. Too careful. Like it had practiced the inflection but couldn't quite mimic the warmth. Are you hiding too? It repeated. My pulse thundered in my ears. I wanted to scream, to leap from the bed and run, but my body wouldn't move. I clutched the bat, my fingers numb. The air under the blanket felt suffocating. A soft giggle followed. Then, slowly, I heard the scratching again. It wasn't random now. It was patterned, 3 slow drags, pause, 3 more. Like it was tracing a message into the floorboards. Then silence. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the ceiling, not daring to lift the blanket. The bat trembled in my grip, slick with sweat. Eventually, I must have passed out. The fear became exhaustion, and sleep took me like a thief. I woke to sunlight. The birds chirped outside like nothing had happened. My room looked normal, untouched. The dresser was still shoved against the door. No scratches on the floor. No messages. No sound. I laughed. Weak and short. Maybe I had dreamed it. I slid out of bed carefully, peeled back the blanket, and checked under the bed. Nothing. Just dust, a missing sock, and the sketchbook I thought I lost a year ago. No sign of anything else. I even checked the closet. Still empty. By the time I ate breakfast, I had almost convinced myself it was all in my head. Stress, isolation, maybe a sleep deprivation hallucination. That's when I found the footprints. They started at the base of the stairs. Bare, damp, and too small to be mine. They trailed into the kitchen and vanished just in front of the fridge. No water. No trail back. Just gone. I stared at them for a long time. Then I did what any reasonable person would do. I called the police. Officer Martinez showed up about 20 minutes later. Middle-aged, calm voice, the kind of guy you trust to check your locks at night. I showed him the footprints, the message in the bathroom mirror, though by then the fog had cleared and the words were gone. He looked sympathetic, concerned, but unconvinced. "You're here alone, right?" he asked gently, after inspecting the whole house. "Yeah. My parents are in Ohio. They'll be back Sunday." He nodded, scribbled something in his notebook. "You say you didn't open the bathroom window?" "No. I haven't even touched it. Mind if I take a look?" He climbed into the tub and fiddled with the latch. "It's not locked," he said, turning to me. "Could have been someone slipped in during the day. Took a shower. Got scared off. That doesn't explain the voice," I said, and hated how ridiculous I sounded the moment the words left my mouth. He smiled politely. "Maybe don't stay alone next time, yeah?" And that was it. He left, telling me to call if anything else happened. The silence in the house felt worse after he was gone. That night, I locked every door and window again. Taped them shut, even. I left every light on. No movies this time. No false confidence. I didn't go upstairs. Around midnight I heard a knock. Just one. Coming from inside the walls. It was soft. A single knock, like someone rapped their knuckles once, politely, inside the wall near the kitchen. Then silence. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just stood there, next to the hallway, phone in one hand, bat in the other, staring at the spot where the sound had come from. Then it happened again. Knock. Slightly louder this time. Directly behind the fridge. I backed away slowly, eyes wide. My mouth had gone dry. I could feel every heartbeat thudding behind my ribs like it wanted out. I inched toward the front door, but another knock stopped me. Knock, knock, knock. Rapid. Sharp. Coming from the living room wall now. Then the hallway. Then the ceiling. It was moving. The knocking was moving through the house. I ran. I bolted for the basement, don't ask me why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe I thought I'd be safe underground. I slammed the door behind me, flicked the lights on, and descended into the cold concrete space. The old furnace groaned like it disapproved. I stayed down there for what felt like hours. Nothing followed. No knocks. No whispers. Just the dull hum of silence pressing in from every angle. Eventually, I collapsed onto the futon by the water heater and passed out with the bat resting on my chest. When I woke up, it was morning. I blinked at the gray light filtering in through the tiny basement window. The air felt still. Unchanged. I sat up, dazed and groggy, and checked my phone. 6:49 a.m. No calls. No texts. I climbed the stairs and opened the basement door slowly. The house looked untouched. Like nothing had happened. But then I saw them again. Footprints. This time, not damp. Dusty. Like someone had been walking barefoot in the attic, and tracked it down through the house. They led from the attic hatch in the hallway, straight into the kitchen, then vanished by the back door. I stared up at the ceiling. I'd never opened the attic in my life. My dad used to grumble about it. Something about how the ladder was broken and the insulation up there was trash anyway. We just left it sealed and forgot about it. But the hatch was ajar now. The wood panel tilted slightly, like something had nudged it open from the inside. And right above me, I heard breathing. Shallow. Labored. Like someone trying to stay perfectly still. I didn't wait. I grabbed my keys, bolted out the front door, and drove. Didn't grab clothes. Didn't pack a bag. Just drove. I ended up at my friend Lexi's house, 2 towns over. She took one look at me, wild-eyed, shaking, clothes rumpled like I'd crawled out of a bunker, and pulled me inside without asking a thing. I stayed there the rest of the weekend. My parents got home Sunday night around 10. I waited until the next morning to go back. Lexi offered to come with me, but I told her no. I didn't want anyone else in that house. Whatever it was, if it was something real, I didn't want it touching someone else's life. Maybe that was dumb. Maybe it was pride. But I needed to face it alone. I pulled into the driveway just after 9. The sun was out, birds chirping, everything perfectly normal. Our blue siding caught the light like it always did. The flower beds were still overwatered from Dad's automatic timer. Nothing looked wrong. But as I stepped out of the car, a strange stillness clung to me. Not the quiet kind from before, but a watching kind. Like the house knew I'd returned. Inside, my parents were making coffee in the kitchen. Dad in his faded UM sweatshirt, Mom still in her robe, scrolling on her phone. They looked up and smiled when I came in. "Hey kiddo," Dad said. "Have a good weekend?" I stared at them. My heart felt like it stopped. Because they were both barefoot. And their feet were caked in dust. "What?" Mom asked, noticing my expression. Your feet," I whispered. Where have you been?" She looked down, confused. "Oh. Weird. I was just upstairs doing laundry. Guess I stepped in something." I backed away slowly. My mouth was dry again. "There's no laundry up there," I said. "The attic." "We cleaned it out," Dad interrupted casually, pouring coffee. "You didn't notice?" "No," I breathed. "No, I didn't. What do you mean you cleaned it out? You said the ladder was broken." "Oh, it was." He grinned. "But we got up there eventually." My mom turned to face me then. Slowly. Deliberately. And that's when I saw it. Her eyes. Not her real eyes. They looked the same, sure, but something behind them had changed. A gleam. A stillness. Like the shine you see in a taxidermy animal. Familiar but wrong. "Why don't you come back upstairs?" she asked gently. Dad smiled wider. "We left something up there for you." I dropped the keys. Then I ran. I ran so fast I didn't even feel my legs move. I flew out the front door, sprinted barefoot across the lawn, and didn't stop until I was 3 houses down. I didn't scream, I couldn't. My voice was gone, choked down by panic and disbelief. I turned back only once. They were standing in the doorway. Both of them. Still smiling. Mom waved. Just one slow, unnatural wave. Like a puppet being tugged by invisible strings. I kept running. I stayed at Lexi's again. This time, I did tell her. Everything. She didn't laugh. Didn't question it. Just sat there on the couch beside me with wide eyes and a shaking hand around her mug of tea. "Jesus Christ," she whispered. "Do you think it's like possessing them?" "I don't know," I said. "But it's not them. Not really." We didn't sleep that night. Monday morning, I tried to call my parents. Just to hear them. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe I was losing my mind. Mom answered. "Sweetheart," she said. "Are you coming home? Your room's all cleaned up." Her voice was off. The same cadence. The same words she'd used 1,000 times. But there was no life behind them. No rhythm. Like she was reading from a script. I left something for you in the attic," she added softly. I hung up. Later that afternoon, Lexi and I drove back to the neighborhood. We parked a block away. I needed to know if it was still there, whatever it was. The curtains were drawn in every window. The house looked asleep. Dead. We crept around the side yard, through the fence, and into the backyard. That's when we saw it. The attic hatch. It was wide open now. A rope ladder hung down from the small square opening. A draft spilled out, ice cold, even in the blazing July heat. There was something up there. I could feel it. Watching. Lexi whispered, "We shouldn't be here." I nodded, took a step back. That's when I heard it. A voice from above. Not Mom. Not Dad. It was me. "Hey," it whispered. "I miss you." My blood ran cold. It said it exactly like I would have. Same tone. Same rhythm. Same little breath at the end. A perfect imitation. "Don't you want to come back inside?" it said again, softer. "We're all waiting for you." I grabbed Lexi's hand and we ran. We didn't stop until we were in her car with the doors locked and the engine roaring. I never went back to that house. My parents, if that's even what they are, still live there. They text sometimes. Normal things. "We miss you. Hope you're eating okay. The attic's still open. When are you coming home?" I never respond. Sometimes, at night, I dream of that voice. My voice. Calling me from upstairs. Asking me why I left it behind. And sometimes, when I pass a mirror, I swear I see something standing just behind me. Waiting to come home. Story 2, Room for One. I never should have taken the night shift. But rent was due, and minimum wage was barely covering gas. So when Mr. Halprin, my boss at the antique store, offered me a weekend job house-sitting for his elderly mother while she visited her sister in Connecticut, I said yes without thinking. Easy money, he'd promised. She lives alone. Nothing to do but feed the cat and keep an eye on the place. You'll have the whole house to yourself. Sounded perfect. The house was just outside of town, tucked at the end of a long gravel driveway and smothered by pine trees. It looked like it had been pulled out of another century. Peeling white paint, green shutters, and a wraparound porch that creaked like it held secrets. Mr. Halprin's mom, Edna, greeted me in a thick cardigan despite the July heat. Her spine was bent like a question mark, but her eyes were bright, intelligent. "Don't go into the locked room upstairs," she said first thing, like it was part of the introduction. "It's not for you." I blinked. "Okay. I wasn't planning to." She nodded, satisfied, and shuffled toward her son's car. That was the last thing she said to me. The first night was quiet. The cat, a sleek black thing named Moses, watched me like I was a trespasser. It never blinked. Never meowed. Just stared from across the room, unmoving, tail curled tight around its paws. I explored the house slowly. The place was full of dusty doilies, china dolls, and cabinets stuffed with yellowed photographs. Every corner felt steeped in memory. But there was one hallway upstairs I avoided. Because of the door. It was painted black, different from the rest, and it didn't have a knob. Just a brass keyhole beneath an old iron latch, sealed shut. Something about it made my skin crawl. The way it jutted slightly ajar, like the frame itself was warped. Like the house didn't want it to close all the way. That night, I lay on the second-floor guest bed, scrolling. "Moses?" I whispered, but the cat had vanished. The house was silent except for the hum of the floor fan in the guest room. I reached out, hand trembling, and pushed the door gently shut. It resisted slightly, like something didn't want it closed. But it gave in with a final click. I backed away, eyes fixed on it. Then something on the other side knocked. 3 times. Slow. Deliberate. I didn't breathe. Didn't move. Just stood there, one hand still hovering near the door, while the sound echoed through my bones. 3 knocks. Not loud. Not frantic. Just expectant. Like someone knew I was standing there. The silence after was worse. I backed away, step by step, until I was back in the guest room. I closed the door softly and locked it, though I doubted it would matter. Then I grabbed Moses, who'd reappeared near the bed, and held him in my lap. He didn't resist. Just curled tightly against my stomach, tense and alert. I didn't sleep. Not really. I stayed curled on top of the covers, phone in hand, too afraid to move or even blink too long. My eyes kept darting to the crack under the bedroom door, watching for shadows. Movement. Anything. But the hallway stayed empty. The next morning, I tried to convince myself I imagined it. The house creaked all the time. Maybe a draft. Maybe old pipes. But the door had moved. And something had knocked. I called Mr. Halpern. I didn't mention the door. Just said the house was making noises at night. Asked if he'd ever noticed anything strange. Not really, he said. But you know old houses. They breathe. Don't worry, Edna's got a good security system. I wanted to ask about the locked room. About why there was no doorknob. About what was behind it. But I didn't. He hung up after reminding me to feed Moses on time. That was it. That afternoon, I tried to look through the keyhole. Just once. I waited until the sun was high, when shadows had retreated and the house felt a little more like wood and wallpaper instead of bones and memory. I knelt down in front of the black door and pressed one eye to the brass ring. Pitch black. I squinted. Nothing. But then, I swear, I saw something shift. Just barely. Like a faint sway in the darkness. A movement without form. Like a curtain rippling, though there was no wind. I jumped back. Moses was sitting behind me again. Watching. That night, I fell asleep without meaning to. I woke up at 3:03 a.m. The bedroom door was wide open, and the hallway light was on. I sat up slowly, stomach tight with dread. From down the hall came a soft, dragging sound. Like feet shuffling across carpet. But it wasn't steady. It stopped, then resumed again, closer each time. I slid off the bed and moved to the far corner of the room, pressing myself into the shadows. Then something stopped just outside the doorway. I didn't dare look. Didn't dare breathe. A long pause. Then a voice, soft and cracked, whispered, "Room for one." I couldn't move. The voice was wrong. It didn't belong to anyone I knew. Not a man. Not a woman. Not even old like Edna. It sounded dry. Like parchment that had learned how to speak. "Room for one," it repeated barely above a breath. I pressed my back into the wall, hard hammering, teeth clenched so hard my jaw ached. My phone was still on the nightstand, face down, out of reach. I could feel Moses pressed tightly against my ankle, his little body stiff and trembling. Then came a shuffle, 2 soft steps on the carpet, and the sound of fingers trailing along the wood just beside the doorframe. I thought about screaming. I thought about charging it with the chair, making a run for the stairs. But every instinct screamed no. Like if I made noise, it would really see me. Seconds passed. Maybe minutes. Then I heard the softest thing yet. Breathing. From just around the corner. Slow. Rattling. Inhale. Exhale. So close I swore I could feel it stirring the air. And then, just as slowly as it came, the breathing faded. The shuffling footsteps dragged away. The hallway light clicked off. Silence returned. I stayed there in the corner until sunrise, too afraid to even close my eyes. The next morning, I searched the house. I had to know. I tore through every room, calling myself paranoid, stupid, losing it. I checked under furniture, in closets, behind curtains. I even checked outside, walked around the house with shaking hands and my phone's flashlight in broad daylight like an idiot. Nothing. But when I got back upstairs, the black door was open again. Wider this time. Just wide enough that I could see inside. A single wooden chair. In the center of a dark room. Facing the door. No windows. No light. Just that chair and the empty space around it. I shut the door, shoved a heavy bookshelf against it, and grabbed my stuff. I wasn't staying another night. That evening, I drove back into town and checked into the cheapest motel I could find. Dingy carpet. Buzzing light. Bed that sagged in the middle. But I felt safer there than I ever could in that house. I called Mr. Halpern. Left a message saying something came up. Family emergency. I'd be back to feed Moses in the morning. I didn't tell him about the door. Or the voice. Or the breathing. But that night, at exactly 3:03 a.m., I woke to a knock at my motel door. 3 slow taps. I didn't answer. I just cried. I stayed absolutely still. The knock didn't come again. But I didn't sleep after that. I just lay there on the creaky mattress with the covers pulled to my chin, watching the bottom of the door like it might lift or split open. There was no sound, no whisper, no movement, just the awful, pressing knowledge that something had followed me, and that it knew exactly where I was. I returned to the house the next morning. Not because I wanted to, but because of Moses. He hadn't eaten in almost a day, and I couldn't shake the image of him curled up and starving on the dusty floor. And if I didn't come back, someone else would have to. I couldn't let that happen. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked unchanged. But it felt different. Heavier. Still. I crept up the porch steps. The key trembled in my hand as I unlocked the door. The moment I stepped inside, the scent hit me, faint and strange. Like iron. Like something old. I called for Moses. No response. The silence in that house wasn't just quiet. It was intentional. Like the walls were holding their breath. I checked the kitchen. The cat food was still in the bowl. Untouched. Moses! I called again, more urgent now. Come here, boy. A faint sound upstairs. A small thump. Then claws on wood. I followed it. Against every shred of my instincts, I went back up those stairs. The hallway was dim. Dust floated like ash in the air. The bookshelf I'd wedged against the black door was toppled over, flat on its side. The door was wide open now. No keyhole. No latch. Just a yawning rectangle of darkness. Moses? I called again. And then, from inside the room, a soft, mewling cry. It was him. I stepped forward. Just to the threshold. The chair was still there, but it had moved. Now it faced the far corner of the room. Sitting in it was a figure. Small. Still. Motionless. I couldn't see its face. Just a pale hand resting on the arm of the chair, thin and dry, like old paper left in the sun too long. And beneath the chair, I saw Moses. His eyes were wide, fur-spiked, but he didn't move. Didn't run to me. Just stared at me like I was already too late. I backed away slowly. Then the figure moved. Not a lot. Just one slow turn of the head, like it had been waiting for me to see it. Room for one, it whispered again. I swallowed hard. The voice was no longer distant or faint. It was right there. Quiet but cold, like a breath of winter through an open window. My legs wouldn't move. My body betrayed me, rooted to the spot as the figure slowly turned fully toward me. Its face was a hollow mask, features blurred and smudged, like a photograph left in rain. Where eyes should have been, there were only dark, empty spaces. No nose, no mouth. just the faintest shimmer where its lips might have been. I blinked, trying to force it to disappear. But it didn't. Instead, it raised a hand, thin, fragile fingers reaching out like a spider's legs, and pointed directly at me. "Come!" That single word echoed in the room, chilling me through every bone. I turned and bolted. Stairs pounding beneath my feet, heart hammering so hard I thought I'd tear through my ribcage. I didn't stop until I was outside, gasping in the sunlight, my skin prickling like static electricity. The house stood behind me, silent and still. The black door was shut tight again. Moses ran past me and disappeared into the trees. I never saw him again. I told Mr. Halprin everything the next day. His face drained of color. "We never let her go into that room," he said. "My mom, she was sick for a long time. Lost her mind, really. That room, it was her sanctuary. She kept things in there, things she shouldn't have." I asked him what kind of things. He looked away. "Old memories. Dark things. She said the room held them, like it was alive." He shook his head. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. But it's best you stay away." I moved out of town a week later. I took a job in a place where I knew no one. But sometimes, at night, when everything is perfectly still and the house is silent, I swear I hear it. That voice. Calling from the darkness. Room for one. Story 3, The Caller. I was 15 when my parents left me alone for the first time. They had an emergency to attend to, a funeral, I think, and asked if I could handle the weekend. They left early Friday morning, swearing they'd be back Sunday evening. It was supposed to be just 2 nights. Nothing big. But those 2 nights turned into the longest, darkest stretch of my life. The first evening was peaceful enough. I played video games, ordered pizza, and kept the TV on for company. The house felt empty but safe, at least at first. Around midnight the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, so I ignored it. But it rang again. And again. 5 times in a row, relentless and sharp. When I finally picked up, there was only silence on the other end. No breathing. No static. Just nothing. "Hello?" I said. Still silence. I hung up. Then the calls started coming every hour on the hour. No one spoke. Just that endless silence. The second night was worse. I tried to ignore it, but the silence on the line started to feel oppressive, like a weight pressing against my ears. I stopped answering. But the phone kept ringing. And then, just after 2 a.m., it stopped. I thought maybe it was over. But then my cell phone buzzed. A text. No number. No name. Just a message. "I'm watching." The screen glowed bright in the dark room. I stared at it for what felt like forever, fingers frozen above the keypad. Who was watching me? Was this a prank? A hacker? Someone sick? I wanted to delete the message. Block the number. Call the police. But something stopped me. A deep, cold knot settled in my stomach. I wasn't alone. I wasn't safe. I shut off the phone and buried it under my pillow. Hours passed. The house creaked and settled in its usual way, but the silence felt different now. Thicker. Heavier. I tried to sleep. But the shadows on the walls seemed to shift, stretching and shrinking, moving just beyond my vision. Then, just before dawn, I heard it. The phone. Ringing. Only this time, it was the landline. My heart hammered as I scrambled out of bed. I didn't want to answer, but I had to know. I picked up the receiver with shaking hands. A voice whispered, "Don't look outside." Then the line went dead. I sat frozen in the dark, clutching the receiver like it might burn me. I wanted to scream. To run outside, find my parents, demand they come home. But the words echoed in my mind. "Don't look outside." I didn't. Not until morning. When the sun finally rose, I peeked through the blinds. Nothing. Just the empty street, the quiet trees, and the usual rustle of leaves. But on the front porch, a single shoe. Dirty, worn, and oddly out of place. I shivered. Someone had been there. I stared at the shoe, hard hammering. It wasn't mine. Not anyone's I knew. I wanted to tell myself it was a prank. A neighbor's kid maybe. But it didn't feel like that. Not at all. I stepped outside, my bare feet sinking into the cool grass. I picked up the shoe, old leather cracked with dirt. It was too big to be a child's. I looked down the street. Empty. No footprints. No other signs. I carried it inside, placed it on the kitchen table. The silence pressed against me again. The phone rang. Both lines. Cell and landline. Simultaneously. I answered the cell first. "I'm inside." The voice was the same low whisper. Then a click. The landline buzzed with static. I dropped the cell and scrambled for the landline. "Hello?" More static. Then the whisper again. "Why don't you come out and play?" I ran to the front door, locked it, and pulled the curtains closed. The house felt suffocating. I wanted to call 911, but my phone died. I was trapped. Trapped with whoever, or whatever, was out there. Then the power went out. Darkness swallowed the house. And the phone rang. The ringing in the pitch-black house was deafening. I fumbled for my phone, but the screen stayed black. The landline in the hallway, the only other phone, buzzed again. I knew I had to answer. Hands shaking, I grabbed the receiver. "Hello?" I whispered, voice breaking. Silence. Then a breath. Slow. Close. And the voice, barely a whisper, chilling every nerve in my body. "Look outside." I refused. I swallowed hard. The line went dead. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, clutching the phone as if it could shield me. Minutes passed. Hours maybe. Then a slow, deliberate knock came at the front door. Knock, knock, knock. 3 times. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just waited. Finally, the knocking stopped. The silence returned. But the feeling of being watched grew stronger. A shadow flickered in the hallway. Something moved in the dark. And then, a whisper so soft I barely heard it. "Room for one." I squeezed my eyes shut. The words echoed inside my head, spinning like a dark whirlpool. Room for one. It wasn't just a phrase. It was an invitation. A promise. A warning. The floorboards creaked behind me. I wanted to turn. Wanted to run. But my feet felt glued to the spot. A cold breath brushed my neck. The whisper came again, this time inches from my ear. "Come play." I stumbled forward, arms flailing, desperate to escape. The hallway seemed to stretch forever. The walls closed in. I crashed into the front door, fumbling with the lock. My fingers slipped. The handle turned. The door creaked open. Outside, the street was empty. The shoe was gone. The night swallowed the house whole. And the whisper followed me out. Room for one. I never told my parents what really happened that weekend. They thought it was just loneliness. Just teenage fear. But I knew better. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I still hear the phone ring. And I still hear the whisper. Room for one.